In the middle of July 1911, more than likely a hot, sticky day in Richmond, Virginia, a newlywed couple and a screaming infant sounded through the hot, still air. Bickering turned into arguing, turned into an outright yelling and screaming match between Henry Clay Beatty Jr. and his new bride, Louise Owen Beatty. Compounded by the verbal row the two lovebirds were going through, was the fact that there was no air conditioning. It had not been invented yet. Hoping that the cool breeze would calm things down, Henry, along with Louise, leaving the baby with a sitter, went for a drive along the Midlothian Turnpike, now known as Highway 60. They were visiting her uncle's house and were supposed to be there early in the evening, but didn't arrive until 10 p.m. By the time Henry reached the family home, Louise was dead. The story that Henry told her family and the police, quite horrific. He said as they drove back towards town, a tall, bearded, white, quote, highwayman jumped in front of their car. Henry swerved off the road to miss him. Then the highwayman yelled at Henry that he had almost killed him. Henry yelled back and tried to drive off. That's when the highwayman drew a gun, pulled the trigger, killing Louise with one well-placed shot to the head. An angry Henry erupted from the car and fought the highwayman. He was smacked in the face with the stranger's gun during the tussle, scratching his nose in the process. Henry finally wrestled the gun away, but when he took aim at the killer, the highwayman ran into the woods. Henry returned home with Louise's body in the car and covered in her blood. Louise was buried 2 days later. Her funeral service was held in the same church where she got married just 1 month before. At first, the police believed Henry's story. He came from a very well-respected family. Henry's father was a successful merchant and a banker, also elder of his church. Henry Clay Beatty Sr. was a pillar of his community, and Henry Jr. was his favorite child. Coming from an upper middle class family, obviously the press would ask, who could have done this? And well, the police had an idea. Henry Clay Beatty Jr. himself. His case started to fall apart when forensic evidence from the scene of the crime didn't match Henry's version of events. The blood found on the scene didn't match the story he told. The gun was found further from where it should have been after being discovered by a passerby sometime after the murder was committed. Eventually, Henry was charged with killing Louise. Police theorized that during an argument, Henry struck Louise with the butt of a gun, putting a large dent in her forehead, then killing her. It was billed as the trial of the century, even though the century was only 11 years old. Also, another theory for the murder was Henry's mistress, a woman by the name of Buela Binford. Suddenly, a true motive came to light for the reason why Henry would want to kill his newly wedded wife. Despite being from a family of means and his father hiring only the best lawyers money could buy, Henry Clay Beatty Jr. was sentenced to death for his wife's murder. On November 24, 1911, Henry Clay Beatty Jr. was executed. He was buried at the Maury Cemetery next to the woman he murdered, the woman that he promised to love and to cherish in sickness and in health, till death do they part. For over a century, Louise has been buried next to her killer. And here we are at the Maury Cemetery here in Richmond, Virginia. And this in front of you is the grave of one Louise Beatty, buried next to her killer, Henry Clay. Beyond the river. That's his execution date. Yeah, so from time to time, I do see these graves of people that are buried next to their killer. Truly no rhyme or reason why a man, or what would possess a man to do such things such as this, to take the life of a woman that he swore to love and cherish forever, through sickness and through health, and to death do they part. However, Henry was the one doing the parting. Rest in peace to Louise, Miss Louise. Okay, guys, I am out of here. I will see you on the next vlog. Be good. Peace out.